Okay, so today I'm going to be looking at this video from Alex Bale about this thing. I've honestly always loved this channel because basically he makes very good like horror content and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very interesting and um I'll be checking it out today, looking at it. Very interested. I kind of skip past some parts, but I'm just going to be going over the main concepts and pausing in between to tell you about what I think.
King Neptune is the ruler of the seven seas and the Roman god of the ocean. If you
He talks about some of his past videos.
He lives in the city of Atlantis with his wife Queen Amphitrite and his son Triton. But in the first SpongeBob movie, he's replaced by a completely different King Neptune who has a completely different daughter named Mindy. These guys don't look or sound at all the same, so how can they both exist in this universe? Well, there's already an interesting theory out there about this.
Here he kind of just talks about his video a bit more and goes more in depth about it. But let's skip ahead a little bit.
Real reason why Neptune looks so different in the movie is because the filmmakers couldn't get the real King Neptune, the literal god of the sea, to show up for a movie. So they hired an actor to pretend to be the king. And there is actually a ton of evidence in the show to support this. King Neptune is supposed to live in the great city of Atlantis, but in the movie he just lives in some random sandcastle, almost like they just built a discount version for the movie. But the real evidence comes from season 10, episode 18, Lost and Found, where SpongeBob goes beneath the Krusty Krab to look for something in the Lost and Found. As he searches through the surprisingly massive collection of items, on one of the shelves we see something mind-blowing. The crown worn by King Neptune in the SpongeBob movie. The entire plot of the movie hinges on the fact that Neptune thinks Mr. Krabs stole his crown. Why would Mr. Krabs have this now? Because this isn't just the Krusty Krabs Lost and Found. It's also where they store the props used by the SpongeBob SquarePants filmmakers to create the SpongeBob movie. If you remember from my television theory, Mr. Krabs is secretly working for the showrunners to spy on all the main characters. And his secret surveillance room was hidden beneath the Krusty Krab just like this Lost and Found. So it makes perfect sense for the showrunners to hide their props down here. And if you still don't believe me, we also see SpongeBob's guitar, the Goofy Goober peanut hats, and the magical bag of wind. All items from the movie that would make no sense being down here unless this was the showrunner's prop storage, and the movie King Neptune was
I would agree with that, but you gotta take into account that this is most likely parody, and, yeah. But I think, I think that makes good sense in the story, as it were.
In the third SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, the King of the Sea is yet again replaced by a new character, King Poseidon, the Greek god of the ocean. He actually does live in the city of Atlantis, except instead of the ancient royal architecture, it's a giant casino designed to make money. It'd be easy to say that these are just two separate kings that rule different areas of the sea, but they both claim to be the ruler of the seven seas. So how can two different characters both be the king of the same seven seas? The answer to that question actually has to do with a place called Camp Coral. Throughout the third SpongeBob movie, we keep cutting back to flashbacks of a younger SpongeBob and all the other characters when they all went to summer camp together. This was all to set up a spin-off show called Camp Coral that followed these younger characters. Now at first, I just wrote the show off as SpongeBob following the trend of making all their characters younger to appeal to a younger demographic. It's been done before and it's never very good. They also completely contradict the continuity of the main show by having characters like Sandy and SpongeBob meet as kids when we know they actually met as adults in the main show. Look, I am having a hard enough time figuring out this show's continuity on its own. I do not need another show full of contradictions to make it even harder. But the creators actually did something very clever to make the continuity work. The 7th episode of Camp Coral ends with one of the biggest plot twists I've ever seen from this show. So in this episode, SpongeBob actually discovers the Krabby Patty secret formula way before it was supposed to be created by Mr. Krabs. But at the end of the episode, it gets accidentally destroyed by Sandy, and then we get this mind-blowing scene.
This is Little Cheeks calling Big Cheeks. Come in, Big Cheeks. Over. Affirmative, Little Cheeks. This is Big Cheeks receiving you from the future. How are things going in the past? Your plan worked perfectly. The formula worked out before before Mr. Plankton could nab it. Now it can be safely rediscovered in the future. I knew sending you to Camp Coral was the right thing to do. Over and out. Bye, Feature Me.
I'm just gonna stop here to say how much I hated that voice actor. It's so bad.
Ah, mission accomplished, timeline preserved. Now everything can continue just the way it's always been.
So Sandy used time travel to send her past self to Camp Coral so that she could make sure the Krabby Patty formula didn't get discovered before it was supposed to. They actually figured out a way to make this messed up continuity make sense. Don't you dare tell me this show doesn't care about its continuity.
So, I cut away some more stuff about an old theory.
Have to do with King Poseidon. Well, this proves that Camp Coral and the movie that sets it up are in an alternate timeline. The events that have taken place in the show are not the same events in this movie. The continuity errors like Sandy and SpongeBob meeting, or Poseidon being the king of the sea instead of Neptune, can be explained by this shift in the timeline. So there you go, King Poseidon and King Neptune are from completely separate timelines. That's why we never see any reference to King Poseidon in the show. And that is the Neptune theory. Huh, I mean that wasn't so hard. I guess I'm done here.
Neptune stirred up quite a gale tonight. He must be mad about something.
That's silly. Everyone knows Poseidon is ruler of the undersea. Everyone knows Poseidon is ruler of the undersea.
So that's the end of part 2, basically saying that they're on 2 separate timelines, and each person is different. This next part will be going over basically that last quote. Who is the god of the undersea? Stuff like that. But yeah.
Why can't anything ever be easy? This is the clip that really made me decide to make this theory. The beginning of Season 5, Episode 19, Spongehenge, shows 2 fish arguing over whether Neptune or Poseidon is the real ruler of the sea. It's like the creators are directly telling us that both of these characters somehow exist in the same timeline, and it's our job to figure out how the puzzle pieces fit together. So, let's take a look. Despite both of these characters having similar appearances and personalities, there is one very important difference between them. Poseidon doesn't have power. We've seen many times that King Neptune has magical abilities that he can use at any time, even without his trident. But in the entire 3rd SpongeBob movie, we never see Poseidon use any powers or magical abilities, except for lighting up his trident, but all he has to do for that is just flip a switch. And we know from the episode Trident Trouble that you don't even need to be a god to use the trident. And at the end of the 3rd movie, we find out Poseidon is actually in terrible shape. If you remember at the end of the episode Neptune's Spatula, Neptune briefly turned SpongeBob into a god, and we can see that having god powers gives you a perfect body. So why is Poseidon in such terrible shape? Because he doesn't actually have powers, only Neptune does. Even Neptune's wife, Queen Amphitrite, has to use technology to zap someone, unlike Neptune, who only has to use his finger in the exact same episode. He is clearly the only one with powers, but why? To answer this question, we first have to understand the origins of King Neptune. Now, throughout the show, there is very little information on Neptune's past. I read the Wikipedia, I looked through the comic books, the video games, but I just couldn't find anything that would help me. But then I remembered there are SpongeBob shorts, which are like mini episodes that only air once, usually to promote something. So I started looking to see if there were any that could help us, and lo and behold, there is a SpongeBob short called The Story of King Neptune. Huh. Yeah, I guess that could be helpful. This short is about SpongeBob telling Patrick the origins of King Neptune, but it's not entirely clear whether it's true.
The story of King Neptune. When King Neptune was a little Neptune, his mother set him adrift in a river. As he floated along, a radioactive meteor fell to Earth. An alien appeared and anointed the infant with super Neptune fluid.
Is that really the origin of King Neptune?
Sure.
So King Neptune was abandoned as a baby and then given his powers by aliens. But SpongeBob is holding an upside-down comic book, so it feels a lot like something he just made up. And SpongeBob is not the most reliable narrator. Unless there's something in the story that we can definitively prove, I don't think we can use it for a theory. Like, do you really expect me to believe that Neptune got his powers from aliens? I mean, we've never even seen aliens in the show before. Except, we have. And they just so happen to also live in a city called Atlantis. Season 5, Episode 12, Atlantis Square Pantis, we see another completely different Atlantis, the Lost City of Atlantis, a city that's home to a race of aliens. The Atlantean aliens traveled billions of light years to come to this planet and build their city.
For reasons unknown, this great city disappeared one day, but no ruins were ever found. All the inventions you take for granted were given to us by the Atlanteans.
They were a peaceful race of aliens who shared their technology, but then mysteriously disappeared for some reason. And take a guess what we find when we look inside of that city. A massive sculpture of King Neptune. That story about aliens giving Neptune his powers doesn't sound so far-fetched now, does it? And that's not all we find.
Neptune's Ascension, the only surviving painting from the great lost city of Atlantis.
A painting created by the Atlanteans called Neptune's Ascension, aka Neptune ascending to his god status by being given powers by the Atlantean aliens. The story is definitely referencing this. There are too many connections for this to be a coincidence. So even though it's being told by SpongeBob and details like the aliens' appearance are wrong, the story itself is probably based on truth. And there's also a lot of evidence to support the idea that Neptune was abandoned as a baby. In Clash of Triton, Neptune is watching a soap opera in his bedroom and gets upset when his wife turns it off.
Oh, Neptune, surely this isn't the behavior befitting a king, doing nothing but watching daytime television.
Wait! Rochelle was just about to meet her biological parents.
In the soap opera, Rochelle was just about to meet her biological parents. Maybe the real reason why Neptune's so invested in the soap opera is because he's never met his biological parents either. There's even tissues on the table next to him as if he's been crying. And the idea that Neptune was abandoned as a baby works perfectly with the mythology in the show. Neptune is the Roman god of the sea, but he is the only reference to Roman mythology in the show. Everything else we see is from Greek mythology. In the episode Trident Trouble, we see a Greek chorus.
Behold, we are the Greek chorus. We narrate this epic tale.
Neptune once mentioned Zeus, the Greek god of thunder.
So I say, look, Zeus, either you come up with more money, or Neptune walks.
He also mentions Apollo, the Greek god of the sun.
Now behold, my beloved home of Atlantis, a prize worthy of Apollo.
Even in the city of Atlantis where Neptune lives, there's a building named the Poseidon, clearly named after Poseidon. So Neptune is clearly the outsider here, which is why he was abandoned as a baby. But if the sea is actually ruled by Greek mythology, then Poseidon should be the true heir to the throne. Why is Neptune the king in the show? Because after Neptune was given his god powers by aliens, he returned to Atlantis and stole the throne from Poseidon. This would explain why there's so much confusion over who the real king is.
Neptune stirred up quite a gale tonight.
Everyone knows Poseidon is ruler of the undersea.
Legally, Poseidon should be the king, but Neptune took it by force. And that's not all he took from Poseidon. Neptune's wife, Queen Amphitrite, is the goddess of the sea. The Greek goddess of the sea, aka the wife of Poseidon. God damn, Neptune stole his wife and his throne. That is cold. And eventually, everyone did recognize Neptune as the rightful king. The pink fish who seemed adamant about Poseidon being the king completely changes her mind one season later in Clash of Triton.
Wait a minute, King Neptune is coming here? Oh, I'm a huge fan of the royal family. I just love everything they do.
And that is the real story of King Neptune. The reason why Poseidon is king in the third movie is probably because in that timeline, Neptune was never given his god powers, so he never stole the throne from Poseidon. Although, seeing as how Poseidon turned Atlantis into a big casino cash grab city, maybe it's a good thing Neptune took over.
The lost city of Atlantic City.
And that is the Neptune theory. That was a tough one, but we are finally done. See you.
Okay, so there's one more part, but in the middle now I'm going to talk about basically what happened, and I will give my opinion on what I think about the ideas in there. So I don't really get the whole timeline stuff. Like in the short with Sandy, they were saying how it was them protecting the timeline, meaning that the timeline was being kept the exact same, so there would have been no changes, therefore meaning that there wouldn't be a second timeline. So it's just kind of confusing. Also, didn't he refute a timeline earlier? all I find is that it's just a bit confusing in what it's actually saying there, since he already clarified that the timeline was one and the same. I could just be wrong, but yeah.
Next time, guys. Wait, why is Poseidon City called the Lost City of Atlantic City?
The lost city of Atlantic City.
I mean, the Atlantic City Park makes sense. That's a reference to the real-life Atlantic City, but why is it called the Lost City? There is nothing lost about the city. It seems like everyone's easily able to find it. The only other reference to a lost city of Atlantis is the one with the aliens that gave Neptune his powers. Nope. Nope, I don't care. I'm done with this theory. I don't need to answer every single little question. I am 100% done. Fine, okay? One more quick part just to tie up all the loose ends, and then I am done. Alright, here we go. So we know before the Atlantean aliens mysteriously disappeared, they shared their technology with the creatures of the sea. I think the self-proclaimed gods of the sea got their technology, like tridents and their other weapons, from the Atlantean aliens. In fact, the Atlantean guards even use golden tridents as their weapons. That's why the gods named their city Atlantis, to pay tribute to the Atlanteans that gave them their technology. But all of that changed when Poseidon became king of the sea. He betrayed the Atlanteans and used their own weapons against them to conquer their home and turn it into a casino city. That's why Poseidon City is called the Lost City, even though it's not lost. It's referencing the Atlantean city that was conquered by Poseidon. And the reason why the Atlanteans gave god powers to some random abandoned baby in the main timeline was so that Neptune could take the throne from Poseidon and prevent him from conquering the alien city. And the reason why the Atlantean city mysteriously disappeared was because they hid it so no one could ever try and conquer them again. And that is the Neptune theory. I am done.
So that's the end of the video. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So overall, with this video, I'm going to say that it makes a lot of sense, and you can tell with how much time they must have put into it. The timeline stuff gets kind of confusing, and it's kind of hard to understand. But yeah, I think that altogether this is a fairly well idolized kind of theory about it. And yeah, I do think that Alex should make more horror stuff as well, because you can tell that he's getting some burnout with all of these theories. Maybe I'm just wrong, but I think he should follow what he thinks he wants to do. There was a part earlier in the video that I kind of cut out, but yeah, I like the channel. I like the video. Pretty great. Pretty great. Bye. Also, make sure to ringle-dingle that bell, hit all that subscribe, and wang-jangle your way out of here. Get out of here. Bye.